Welcome back to the Ask Golf Guru channel. I'm Mark Crossfield and we're talking today hot potato, LIV Invitational Tour. PGA have announced that they're not going to release their players to play. So people can go and play in the LIV Invitational Tour if they've got PGA Tour status, but they will be breaking laws and rules, which obviously the ramifications of that could be huge for a tournament golfer. So LIV Golf, Greg Norman's statement came out, which we're going to talk about. We've also got my Twitter feed here where you've been having your say, so we're going to talk about what we see from people's responses to this. It's such an interesting conversation. There's so many levels to it. Let's see what Greg Norman is saying to start. This one is the statement's interesting. I want to know what you think of this statement. So basically he is saying, so sadly the PGA Tour seems intent on denying professional golfers the right to play golf unless it's exclusively in a PGA Tour tournament. It's disappointing in the light of the tour's non-profit status. He then goes on to says that their only interests of the professional tournament golf instead of their intent on it being a monopoly, where he wants more of a free and open market. The tour action is anti-golfer, anti-fan, anti-competitive. But he then goes on to say no matter what they put in our way, what obstacles, we will continue to give players options to promote the great game globally. So he is making some big statements there, like proper big statements, which will be obviously read and people will have more opinions, which we'll do maybe another video on that. I'd love to know what your thoughts of that are at the moment. Anti-golfer, anti-competitive. I mean, just briefly before we go through the comments here on Twitter, it definitely feels like the PGA Tour does want to protect its interest, which makes perfect sense. It's a fantastically successful business with an amazingly brilliant product that we all enjoy. It does seem maybe a little disappointing for a neutral golf fan. I would call myself a pretty much neutral golf fan. I think competition for things like the PGA Tour is only a healthy thing for the PGA Tour for golf, and certainly for world golf, where obviously the PGA Tour is an American product and there's great golf played all around the world, and we definitely see the PGA Tour trying to invest in global golf more to sustain its position as the #1 tour, and that might be great for golf as well. So I just think the LIV Tour definitely offers some interesting options for golfers and golf to develop away from some of the monopolies that it has. But obviously there are big questions on for people where the money comes from and all those kind of things, which I understand, which we're not really going to try and talk about that. We could do a separate one on that, because I think because a question for you down in the comments. What do you think of Greg's statement? We'll go through the Twitter comments and you can respond to them as well a little bit. But also, what do you think? Would this be the same if the LIV Tour was funded by a UK or an Australian or an American company? Like, would it be the same backlash, the same defense? I don't know. What do you think? I just think it's an interesting one, because I don't know. I just feel like the Saudi connection blurs sometimes the discussion, because the discussion for me is more that it doesn't feel like the PGA Tour wants any competition out there, which I understand. But competition is healthy, I think, for all of us. So, yeah, where do you stand on that? Let's get into Twitter then. Have your say. What were you saying about this? Okay, this is a big one. Ed is saying here, like Putin, LIV does not like world order. Tour has the right to defend itself. Golf viewership is down. Western countries in recession. Sponsorships may dry up like the previous recessions. Open wheel racing in US, decade of fighting. Audience left. Never regained market is what Ed is saying. Gareth says, setting an early stance will be interesting to see how the players react. LIV Golf still stinks. At least Westwood and Scott have said they're doing it for easy guaranteed money for less work. John says the PGA hit a shank. When you take choice away, then people will seek out alternatives, John is saying. And definitely we are seeing more and more PGA Tour players coming on and saying that they're in support of the PGA Tour, which I understand. They're PGA Tour players who make millions from it. I think we had Will Zalatoris recently coming on saying, things very pro PGA Tour, which I totally understand. I don't think the PGA Tour have hit a shank. I definitely think the PGA Tour have smashed a curveball, which now it'll be interesting to see how people, and obviously I imagine it's going to go to lawyers, react. So yeah, interesting one. First tournament, Henry Cooper says, I think we had Henry in the last one. First tournament may not have all the big names, but I bet it will be the last tournament. The fields will keep getting better when they see the prize funds. My guess, the PGA Tour starts handing exemptions out when the big players tell them they're going to play. I'm not sure about that, because obviously you have got that interesting dilemma. Just imagine what may happen if LIV find a few emerging young highly skilled players from around the world. The new tiger may be born and golf will be better for it. Short game skills. And this is a really interesting question, depending when people talk about the field. I think obviously when you think about the field for the LIV Invitational, we want, you know, Tiger, Rory, Ram playing, and if we don't, we want them in the PGA Tour, like we want them in a field. But there is the next Rory, Ram, Tiger. Tiger obviously is a much bigger ask, but there will be one that comes along. And if a sub-tour gets hold of them and can provide them enough income, that's an interesting long-term development, isn't it? And I also think, and don't quote me on this, I'm filming this video, the PGA Tour were announcing things around, I think, amateur golf as well, trying to close loopholes down. Again, China feels like a bit of a monopoly possibly, but again, that's just my opinion, I don't know. Let me know what you think. But I think the young skill players coming through, again, that's definitely a possibility if the LIV Tour can market themselves to those people. If the players go to play on the LIV Tour, can they still play in the majors? Dave, well, as we stand at the moment, my understanding of that is that they can, but don't quote me on that, how that will change. You've got to remember the majors are actually independent, aren't they? They're not really, they're co-sanctioned, I think. I don't know what the right terminology is, but the majors are, so the Masters is an invitational event. I mean, the Masters is a really good example of one event that just did what it wanted back in the day and still does now. It's its own thing, and the tours kind of latch on to it. And if there's one course that's had a history of very interesting ideas around human rights, it's Augusta, isn't it? Yet we've all seemed to move on and forget that and enjoy the Masters, which I do as well. Like, so we're all contradiction, or we're all kind of maybe getting lost in some of the bigger points. We all do it. Good job. No other countries have blood on their hands. The wars they created for wealth, with a little wink. Good point. Imagine how embarrassing that would be if people from those fellow countries tried to claim the moral high ground. I think this is an interest. This is Mike and Ed talking more about where the money comes from, because there's definitely some bigger, where the money comes from is a much bigger discussion. And another point for you, maybe in the comments, out of interest, this is not my opinion, this is devil's advocate, and I'd like to know what you think. At what point do we accept that the money comes from certain places, which it already does? You've got to remember the FedEx money comes from massive investments they make in Saudi for profits, which then goes back into golf. PGA Tour have big investments in China. You've got European Tour sponsored by a huge Dubai sponsor. So it's kind of, it's interesting that, is it an actual human rights question, or does that cloud the real question that do the PGA Tour just want a monopoly idea? Again, not my opinion, or just an idea to discuss. So let's take a little bit more looks at what you're saying. They will tap in college up and comers and weaken fields on midterm. Begs the question, if they are not going to ban from PGA in the first place, could they later earn a playing card from I don't know what that means, unfortunately, but I guess he is also saying if you tap into the college stuff where they're all coming through, absolutely you will, you're going to see a tour that develops over years. I also saw a comment from a sports writer on Twitter. I haven't got it in front of me, but it was really shocked to me, and this is where the media, I think, lets it say. So like a mainstream media kind of writer, the golf writer. To be fair, I'm biased because I hate them. They're often so awful, and their opinions are based on just basically who they're aligned with their media outlets. But saying, millions and billions announced for this tour, but the first event's going to be done on YouTube, as if that was like as a put down. Well, let's put it out there. Putting events on YouTube or any platform that has a huge audience is only good for golf. The selfishness of some of the media and around this event pushing the agenda of your paid TV networks that make you pay to watch golf, they certainly do in the UK. Putting golf on YouTube is maybe a good idea, isn't it? I mean, there's lots of YouTubers with lots of views with huge audiences. It just seemed like such one of those kind of golf elitist things that it can suffer from. And I think this tour, LIV Tour debate, maybe kind of hints on that as well. Stephen Kelly says, I have no really interest in watching pre-seniors tour. So he's talking about like the older people who are maybe not hungry for playing every tour event, going over to play the LIV Tour. Major League and minor league baseball is what comes to mind here. Obviously all the American viewers will get that more than I do. I tend to agree with the statement. Players should be allowed to play wherever they want to as independent contractors. Kevin, and that's an interesting debate. I don't quite understand the legality of the independent contractors idea and how much they actually are. The PGA Tour isn't denying people to go and play in that event. They're saying you can play, it's just you're going to be against the rules because we're not releasing you. So the rules, I would presume, are black and white for what the players can do. The independent contractors, again, maybe in the comments, let me know, help me understand that more. I understand what an independent contractor is, and I understand that they're free to do a bit more what they want. I'm not sure if it is as simple as just saying independent contractors. Those are my point. Maybe let me know down below. Here we go again, Malcolm. Grab your tin hat, boys. War has been declared. Boys and girls, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it does feel like that. It feels like this is going to go all the way. Ali's tedious. People are getting fed up with this. Because at the end of the day, what happens with golfers, and I've noticed this over years of producing content, is they just want to play golf. Sometimes they don't want to get involved with the issues. They just want that to happen a little bit under the curtain and what have you. And often in golf, the issues don't get addressed a little bit, and we continue to live in an archaic world. So I get that it might be tedious, but I think it's actually quite an important question, along with many others that golf needs to have, which often doesn't have, because golfers just want to go and play golf and everything else is tedious, which I get. But they should let the players choose. Competition is good as gives options and get to see new products. Simon Shaw, and I sway a bit more on this side. I agree. I think competition is good. I think letting the players choose is good. If the PGA Tour is really confident in its product, it should just literally have a good product. And speaking to a few players that I've spoken to off the record, not naming any names, on both European Tour and the PGA Tour, players are frustrated that they feel like they're pawns at the minute in maybe a personal battle between Greg and the commissioner of the PGA Tour, possibly. And I can see why they're angry, because their options are being decided by others, where in effect Tour's a non-profit organisation. It's kind of run by the players, for the players a little bit idea, but this feels like maybe not so much. Possibly. Sai says the PGA is shooting itself in the foot by not allowing players to go, yet they're offering incentives for players to enter the Scottish Open, and this is a very good point. Remember that the tours definitely use incentives. Why does anyone go and play in the China event? It's money. Why does anyone go and play in the Saudi event that's been? It's money. We get the Americans going into the China event, the co-sanctioned kind of joint one. And you got to remember as well that the PGA Tour made a big investment in the European Tour, so the European Tour possibly, again, discussed down below, maybe aren't that strong with their opinions here because they're in bed with the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour is doing that to keep its authority. If you think about the amount of great Europeans that we don't get to see on the European Tour week in, week out anymore because they go to America, because that's where the money is that really any different to what's trying to be started possibly in the LIV Tour? Again, a question, not my opinion, just a question that goes around in my head, and I'd like you to help me answer it. 100% accurate. This work environment is at the PGA is unlike any other job, guaranteed. The backers LIV Golf are not ideal, but it's still exposing this dirty little secret of the PGA Tour MVP. It does feel a bit that way. Just boring now. The anti-fan point is interesting given the cost of attending the London event. Seems like Galway House between the PGA Tour, DP Tour and Champions Tour. I think the price for the London event is around maybe £57. I'm pretty sure entry, and you can quote me this, to the Belfry event that's just gone, the British Masters, was around 50 quid. And often London clubs, maybe there's, I don't know what the entry is for the PGA at Wentworth. Maybe let us know what people pay, just out of interest. So it'd be interesting what you think of that when it comes to what people are referring to cost of getting in. And MF Golf says, I would hold off announcing the World Muppet Tour just in case you upset the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. Muppet Tour is the best. MF Golf, that is a comment to finish on. I agree. Let me know what you think. Have your say in those comments down below. It is hotting up. I think the Greg statement makes some really interesting points. I totally understand where the PGA are coming from. They're protecting their brand and they're doing it within their legal rights as we stand at the moment, I would guess, not being a lawyer or understanding. It does feel like they want to keep their monopoly, if we want of a better word, or certainly their position in the market. And what business wouldn't? They've got a great product that they've built up over many, many years. So I totally understand. Yeah, it's a hot potato. What do you think? And also, what do you think about the fact that it's Saudi money? If it wasn't Saudi money, if it was money that everyone seemed happy with, but the same thing was happening, would we be in the same stalemate situation or not? Thanks for watching. As always, hit the subscribe button. Remember, this isn't my channel that you see me on lots. This is my Ask Golf Guru channel, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Loads of Q&As coming, as well as have your say, so post your questions. I'm trying to answer in as many videos as I can, just to give you some good content. It's not about trying to hit the algorithm, it's actually about trying to give golfers content that they're asking for. Quite a unique idea, YouTube, eh?